All right, good evening. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Dr. Werner, for honoring us with your visit and presence. We're very excited to have you here. It wasn't difficult to get him here because Dr. Werner loves St. Louis. He actually studied medicine here at St. Louis University. Then he did an internship in obstetrics and gynecology at St. Luke's Hospital in the late 1980s. His daughter was born there. He practiced for medicine for 14 years, and in that period of time, he helped thousands of women and mommies and delivered over 2,000 babies successfully. So I think blessed hands there. And also, he raised 10 children.
Oh, Utah.
You might see those feathers in his cap starting to pop up. However, he's no longer practicing mainstream medicine. Instead, he's facilitating healing with different therapies, assisted by his innate and developed gifts and the guidance of many, many angels and saints who are helping us in our ascension and helping change the earth. Dr. Werner had 2 near-death experiences from which he returned with the inner knowing and awareness of his role to assist the planet in the healing of humanity. He is on a mission given to him by Saint Germain, the divine alchemist, who is one of the top spiritual leaders in the Aquarian age and master of the seventh ray. Some of you may be familiar with the power of the violet flame of transmutation and using it in daily practice, and I know many of you are actually working with him consciously or super consciously. So in case you don't know Saint Germain, I wanted to share this beautiful image from Unveiled Mystery, Gay Ballard's book, Master Jesus and Master Saint Germain, very present today and for humanity and during the Aquarian age. So we honor him and his instrument, Dr. Werner. So to finalize briefly, because I'm almost finished, Dr. Werner's lectured extensively to private and professional groups throughout the U.S. He has also authored 3 books, Take Back Your Health, The Next Step to Human Evolution, and Breakthrough. So we are very grateful for the wisdom and information you will share with us today.
Thank you. And I bless that we do uplift each other and bring the energy of the Masters in. 14 years ago, I was given a blessing by a previous Mormon, and it was really interesting what happened. I was following him on the internet. His name was J.J. Dewey, and he had John the Beloved coming to him and teaching him. And he'd write about these teachings on the internet, and I would read them and feel the energy, and I wanted to know if it was real. And so I got in my car, and I drove up to Boise, Idaho, and he was staying at a cabin 40 miles north of Boise in the mountains north of Boise, Idaho, and I knocked on the door, and this lady opens the door, and she says, "Hi, you've come to heal us." And I said, "No, I came to meet J.J. Dewey. Is he here?" And she says, "Yes, he's back in the kitchen, and he's expecting you." And I was like, "What?" You know? And so she opens up the door further, and there's 24 people in a circle praying for healing. And I'm like going, this is kind of interesting. And so I go back to the kitchen where JJ is, and he said, "Yes, John told me we're coming, and I'm supposed to give you a blessing, and after you have been blessed, you're supposed to heal us." I'm like going, holy cow, what did I get myself into? So anyway, he gives me a blessing, and in the blessing he said, "Through your voice will come the healing sounds of God to heal the people on the planet." And I was like, whoa, this is kind of cool. So after the blessing, it gave me some faith, you know, how those things happen, and the blessing just made me feel like, okay, let's do this. So I kind of used my intuition, and they had these big windows in the cabin. And I had the sickest one get to the furthest end next to the windows, and then I had each person, according to how sick they felt they were, line up, and JJ was in front of me and I was behind JJ. And this is what I did. And I'm going to do it for you now so you can experience this, because I'm feeling this helps raise the vibration of everybody in the room. Whew, that thought my ears should be playing. And then, when I was in Fairfield, Iowa, as the comet Elenin was coming around the sun, and it came between the Earth and the sun, I had a weird experience where I just kind of went out. I was doing an intuitive reading on a lady, and she wondered whether she should call 911 or not. You know? And I'm glad she didn't, because I don't want to end up in some hospital, and they'll kill you there. But anyway, so I came back from that with what is called pineal and pituitary tone. And I'll do that for you right now, because tonight we're going to stand your pineal glands up. Our pineal glands produce DMT, serotonin, and melatonin. DMT is dimethyltryptophan, which is another one of the hormones for the brain, but it's a very important one. I don't know if any of you've heard of DMT, but it's the God hormone. It's the one that connects you to your visions and dreams. So we're going to help your pineal gland right now stand up, and so you'll have really vivid, good dreams tonight. So we'll go ahead, come on in, and have a seat, because I don't want to have you fall over when I do this. But anyway, it's kind of interesting because it's very high-pitched, and so we'll do that now. So what we're going to do is focus on the upper two chakras, and the pineal gland, and the pituitary gland, and the amygdala, and the corpus callosum, all of that good stuff that helps our brains integrate. But we're going to integrate it with God. So. Okay, what that'll do is it helps force the energy right up to your 8th chakra, believe it or not. This is your 7th, and it forces it right up to the 8th, and it connects you to God. So, why do I do what I do? Back in 1986, when I graduated from St. Louis University Medical School, I had such a great experience at St. Louis City Hospital. I mean, we got to play doctor there. And in 1984, when I did my OBGYN training, just as a third-year medical student, mind you, most of the guys who I knew who were at other medical schools never got to touch the patients till they were interns. And here we were, third-year medical students. And AIDS had just came out, so everybody was freaking out about bodily fluids and stuff. And the intern was, this was my first day, you know, third-year medical student. I read all about all of the delivery stuff and how to do, you know, repair the episiotomy and everything. And anyway, you'll appreciate this because this young girl was 14, pregnant, and she was in hard labor. I was just there to observe, And the intern was sitting down there ready to catch the baby. And she lets out this blood-curdling scream and grabs a hold of this intern's arms, and literally she had these long fingernails and scratched all the way back. So he was bleeding. And then she blows her bag of waters out on him. And he had no idea where she'd been, what she'd done, and so he was freaking out. And he says, "You better sit down and do the delivery while I go clean up." So here I am, I'm a third-year medical student, I'm really, getting excited. And so I sit down, and she lets out another blood-curdling scream, and this baby literally just goes, came right out and dropped in the bucket that catches all the fluids.
Oh, no.
And the mom says to me, "What happened?" And I said, "It's okay. The baby's in the baby bucket." and it was really interesting because they didn't know any better. But the bad thing was she actually blew out so much that it tore through her vagina and rectum. And I mean, it was what we call a 4th-degree tear. And I hadn't done much except sewed up socks before this time. And so I start sewing up, and I'm giving her anesthetic and everything. But anyway, to make a long story short, I hope this woman isn't walking around St. Louis with everything shut down because of me. But it was it was such an exciting thing. And every time a baby comes out, it's like the heavens open up for that spirit to come in. And it is just so cool. And that's why I became an OBGYN, among other reasons. Anyway, Saint Germain, when I was in medical school, I had 2 kids and a wife, and it was expensive. The tuition was $16,000, $17,000 a year, and we could only borrow $20,000, and so I had to get me a job. And one of my first jobs in medical school was actually working for a law firm called Coburn, Crofts and Putzel. I don't know if they still exist. This was, a long time ago, 40 years ago. No, 34 years ago. And anyway, they were having medical students go through the charts of men who had worked as linemen and on the electrical systems and telephone companies. And I don't know if you've all heard of dioxin and Agent Orange. They plastered it in Laos and Vietnam, and they're still having genetic problems from these toxins. And anyway, what our job was to go through the medical records and see if it associated with the problems these linemen were having, and it did. And so the law firm recommended to Monsanto to settle the case, and they settled out of court, and they buried all the records, so it doesn't even exist, but I know about it because I went through all the medical records and worked for them. And so very early on in my medical training, I learned about these toxins. And it was quite interesting as I went through my training and taking care of babies. I would always tell the mothers, play good music, tell your baby you love it, sing to it, do all these good things. And of all the babies that I delivered, there's usually 2 out of 100 that are what we call bad babies. In other words, they had genetic or problems, defects. And I was so fortunate I didn't deliver any that I had done the prenatal care for that were bad babies. And I always wondered about this. Why are these babies all coming out really good? And I talked to Bruce Lipton about it, who wrote The Biology of Belief, and he said, "Scott, you were just practicing the biology of belief with these women. You were helping train them and teach them that positive attitude, good energy, love will purify everything." In fact, he did studies that showed we could actually alter the genetics. That a baby, we would do an amniocentesis and find out there was a genetic defect. And yet we teach the mom that, believe your baby's going to be perfect, send it lots of love, and lo and behold, the baby would be born and would be perfect. It wouldn't even show any signs of trisomy 21 or mongoloidism, or, we have a lot of names for things as doctors. But so very early on, I learned about the genetics and about our thoughts being able to change the genetics. But I didn't realize there was a lot more. And so in 2011, I had a dream, and Maharishi, Mahesh Yogananda, who taught the Beatles, and he started Fairfield, Mum University, north of here, about 150 miles. And he came to me, he says, go to Fairfield and detox my people. And I was like, that was a weird dream. And the next morning I got up and went to work, and I got a phone call, and it was from a lady by the name of Janet Schwartz, and she told me I could use her name. Her and her husband are some of the first people that came. They were New York Jewish kids who had rich parents, and they could afford to leave and go on a very interesting world, and they ended up in Fairfield, Iowa, got married there, and followed the teachings of Maharishi. But she called me up that morning, and she said to me, Scott, I've got 18 women lined up, and we'll pay you $100 each. And I thought, oh, I'll take $1,800. That's like a delivery when I was doing deliveries. But anyway, and she said, if you'll come to Fairfield, Iowa, and help us detox and lose weight, we'll pay for your flight, and we'll pay you $100 each. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maharishi just came to me and told me to go there. So anyway, I ended up going to Fairfield, Iowa in May of 2011 and helping these 18 women. And then the word spread out, and with the TMers, they all communicate quite a bit. And I ended up seeing 108 people during that visit. Actually, I saw a couple more, but 108 is a very important number, especially for the people there, because it's very audacious and very good. And so anyway, after doing that, I've gone back every 6 months to, keep them detoxing, keep them healthy. And the reason I was sent there was because Monsanto has a bunch of farms up there, and they're using all kinds of strange chemicals. And, as you drive by, they've got the label out on the farm and telling what they're using and the different things. And I came to find out 2 years ago, I went to Fairfield, and everybody was getting sicker. And I was going, what is going on? Because we were getting them healthy. We were getting rid of their Parkinson's. We were getting rid of their ALS. We were getting rid of all these neurologic diseases that these chemicals cause. And all of a sudden, they started getting sick again. And what had happened is Monsanto had trained the agronomists, who are the farmers, the people, when they go to school, they go to agronomy school, and they trained them to put even more chemicals on to harvest them, because it would desiccate even the Roundup Ready crops very quickly, and they could harvest it quicker. And so they went, when farmers, before all this started happening, they used a max of about 3 gallons per acre. And now we're up to 150 gallons of chemicals per acre. And they would put this on to desiccate it, and then they built these big silos out east of Fairfield, and they put the grains up in there, and this dust would come down upon the whole town, and they'd all get sick. And so they said to me 2 years ago, what are we going to do, Doc? You got us well, and now we're getting sick again. Do we need to move out of Fairfield, and just leave this area? And I told him, no, because usually I'll get answers to my prayers. I'll pray, and instantly I'll get an answer. And it didn't come, and it didn't come. And I was getting kind of depressed. And in fact, that fall, I didn't want to go back to Fairfield without an answer for them. And so what happened was my sister-in-law, who's a shaman, Angela Mondato, she got me a gig up at Mount Shasta to speak at Marilyn Harper's thing. Marilyn Harper channels Adironda, who is a extraterrestrial being. And, you know, a lot of people, they have problems with this kind of stuff because they don't believe in it. But I'm here to tell you, there are extraterrestrials, there are healing masters, there are angels, there are fairies, there are elves, and I've met some of them. That's why I can say that to you, that there are these kind of beings. And they're very cool. And they kind of don't communicate with humans because we tend to dissect them and, you know, kill them and do all kinds of weird stuff with them. And so they don't like appearing to people who don't believe and who aren't nice, who don't want to kill them. So anyway, so when I went to Mount Shasta, my intent, I read the book about the Telos, and 3 books about them actually, and I wanted to find the entrance, and I wanted to go talk to these guys because they're supposed to be very high-minded fifth-dimensional beings who are very good with healing and doing other work with, you know, chemicals and different things because, you know, we're polluting our planet pretty bad. So anyway, when I went up to the Upper Panther Meadows and I found an entrance to the Telos, but they wouldn't let me in because there was too many people around. And they didn't want all these people to know where they were because, you know, our government tends to go down and dissect them and, you know, take over. And so it's fascinating. But what ended up happening was Marilyn kind of made an energy come into me through her Adironda, which allowed me to just feel the energies so much more crisp. That's the best way to describe it. It's just crispier, just more delightful. And so we had some marvelous experiences. And in the book, The Next Step of Evolution, we were staying at a house that we called the Arkansas House because there was 18 of us staying there and we were all at the conference, but the majority of them were from Arkansas, of all places. And I'd never really been to Arkansas. You know, I'd been as far as Branson, but I'd never crossed the border into Arkansas. And so this one lady, one of the mornings, she had a stack of cards. And I looked at these cards and they were all very colorful. And I said, what are these? And she says, these are Archangel cards. And they're also cards of the Andromedans and the Arcturians and, you know, energies from God that are very healing. And I said, well, let me look at those. And I looked at them all, and the one that really stood out to me was this one called Archangel Zaphiel, the angel of compassion, ecstasy, and creation. And I looked at that, and it jumped out at me. And she says, well, what you do is you put it down on the floor and you stand on it with your bare feet. So I took my shoes and socks off and I stood on this thing and my feet literally started burning. Now I had had a diabetic neuropathy for 4 years and my legs ached all the time. But when I stepped on this, it burned. I mean, it was painful. And I jumped off of it. It was so painful. And she says, you get back on there because that's the card you need if it's doing that to you. And so I just very hesitantly got back on. And it starts burning again, but I just withstood it. And finally it started feeling really good. And I thought, boy, these cards are amazing. You know, it was just a laminated card with a triangular picture, and it had the orange flame because Zaphiel is the keeper of the orange flame of our creative center. So it was kind of a weird experience, but she said, you need these cards. And so when I got home, I bought them, and I've been using them. And they're an amazing other thing that we can use. There's so much out there, it's pretty incredible. So anyway, to make a long story short, I met this lady who who was an elf. I mean, literally, she spoke elf language. Her name's Jamie Price. I don't know if any of you have heard of her, but interesting lady. And I understood the elfin language. It was really weird. She spoke to me, and I was like, oh, so you're telling me this? And she didn't even understand what she was telling me. And I told her what she had told me. She goes, boy, that's interesting. So anyway, it was fascinating experiences. And, you know, I gave my talk there, and Marilyn invited me to come to Arkansas this past October. But anyway, to make a long story short, we're going to move along to when St. Germain came in. We headed home, and I still hadn't had an answer, and I didn't want to go back to Fairfield, Iowa without an answer for these people. And we get to Reno, and Cindy, who is my sister, my wife's twin, she had a friend, and we went and ate dinner with him, and you know, had a good time. And then we went back to the hotel, and I just couldn't sleep. I just, you know, it was really bugging me that I hadn't had an answer. So I got on my knees and I prayed and said, you know, before I get home, I've got to have an answer. Anyway, so I finally got so tired. It was about 1 in the morning when I finally fell asleep. And I woke up at 2:22 because I remember looking at the clock, and it said 2:22. And that's a very auspicious number, too. Triplets, you know, the Doreen Virtue talks a lot about seeing triple numbers. And the twos are something where you're going to combine your energy with somebody else and bring something very powerful to the planet. That's what it means, the 222. So I kind of look down at the foot of the bed, and I see this purple energy, just kind of a haze appearing. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of it, there's this white light, and it opens up, and it's like a portal. And this man comes walking through, and he grabs a hold of my big toe and wiggles it. And I was like, this isn't an apparition, this is a person, you know? And he said, I am St. Germain, and I've come to you with an answer to your question. And let me tell you, I didn't expect St. Germain. I really didn't. Usually I just hear something or know something, you know, one of my senses picks up something and there's the answer. But he literally talked to me for 2 hours, and he said stuff to me that I did not understand. My puny brain was not ready for what he was telling me. And the gist of it was that we need to create 24 strands of DNA within every cell in our body to make it strong enough to withstand all the toxins, chemicals, nanobots, all the radiation that we're being exposed to as human beings right now. Now, it took me a while to really let this sink in. You know, after he left, another being of life named Melchizedek came to me. Now, as a Mormon, I always believed Melchizedek was just a prophet in the Old Testament, and they named the priesthood after him because he was such a good guy. But what he told me was he reiterated everything that St. Germain said to me, and he added to it. And so my brain was just bubbling over with all this communication. And truthfully, when the third person came to me, which was Zapkiel, the angel Zapkiel, and he talked to me about creation and our creative center and our humanness and our spark of God, like Wayne Dyer talks about. He said, we all have creative energy within us, and we as humans can create whatever we put our intent, attention, and emotions on. Isn't that interesting? And he talked to me for an hour. So by the time everybody got done, it was 6 in the morning. And my brain was just boggled with all this information. And it was really interesting because Angela and Cindy were in the other double bed, and I was just in this bed by myself. And Angela actually woke up and saw this guy, and she says, who are you talking to, Scott? I I said, it's Saint Germain. He said, oh, and then she fell back to sleep. It was kind of funny. But then when she woke up that morning, she said, Scott, tell me everything he said. Tell me what he said. I was too tired. And it was interesting because there was so much I couldn't reiterate the most of it. But I did remember very distinctly that he wanted me to write a book about the 24 strands of DNA and how we as humans, it will evolve our bodies so we're not susceptible to all the toxins. And that the original humans that came to the planet Earth had 24 strands of DNA. Now, Marduk, which is a planet that was in between Mars and Jupiter, which now is the asteroid belt, Marduk was actually the Garden of Eden. And the humans, when they left the Garden of Eden, they were forced out and they came to the planet Earth. Isn't that interesting? This is what Saint Germain talked about. And so it explained a lot to me how, the first humans coming here, they lived 1,000, 2,000 years. In the Bible they talk about 900, Methuselah and everybody. But they were perfect human beings. And then when they combined with the Neanderthals only had 2 strands. When a human with 12 double helix, they make gametes, the cells divide and they get half the complement of genes. So they get only 12 strands. And when those go to combine with only 1 strand from a Neanderthal, the other 11 can't combine with anything. So we ended up with 2-stranded humans. So I know this is heresy. Don't tell my medical friends that I'm going to a reunion with tomorrow night that this is total truth. But when Saint Germain says stuff, I believe it. And I first read The Magic Presence probably 20 years ago, and then there's other books. There's 30 some odd books. But when she showed the picture of Saint Germain and Jesus, do you know what I learned about Saint Germain? Joseph, who was the stepfather of Jesus, was an incarnation of who? Saint Germain. I just learned that recently. You guys already knew it. And what am I doing speaking here? So it's cool stuff. It's very cool stuff. I didn't believe in reincarnation until 15 years ago, when they finally kicked me out of the church and I started studying other stuff. But kind of interesting things. And there's nothing wrong. I believe all religions are good. When I went down with Father Gabriel Mejia, and he talked about how the Catholic Church finally accepted that all paths lead to God, and they didn't accept that until 1987. Pretty interesting. And here my dad is Catholic, and my mom's Mormon. But luckily, neither one of them went to church. We'd go out in nature every weekend, and I had a very good childhood. I can't complain about my parents at all. They never fought, and they took us out into nature every weekend, and we didn't have to go to church, but sometimes we align ourselves with different thoughts and thought forms and teachings, and it's okay, because we're all here to experience this stuff, no matter what it is. No matter what you're believing or what you're being taught, it's just an experience. And we're here to experience these things. Now, the reason I go around speaking this is when Saint Germain came to me and he had me write this book, he says, Scott, this time in Earth history is the most important time ever. It's been 26,000 years since we had the last batch of humans go through their ultimate evolution and move on into the ascending in a higher dimension through their growth. And it's time again now that humans are going through this process, and we all need to do it together, believe it or not. We can't leave anybody behind. Because if we do, the aliens are going to have to take them off the planet, because the planet's going to be gone into another dimension. It's going to be moving into the fifth dimension. Now, the fourth dimension is where the spirits, the inter-life, go. And then we have to come back here, or if we've been really good, we go up to the fifth dimension. But what Saint Germain was talking about was, this is time, and it's all of us need to get evolved enough to pull all of us along, like the 100 monkey thing. You know? We all need to get our 24 strands of DNA. And what will happen when 144,000 of us get this 24 strands of DNA, we will bring everybody with us and ascend with them no matter what. And we will help them ascend with us. And so it's very important that we do this. And the other reason it's important, it'll keep you healthier while we're still here in the third dimension. And what I found, I got through the 144 strands of, the 24 strand, doing it 144 times, because Saint Germain says you got to do it 12 times 12 times, and I thought, okay, that just means 144 times. But what I found out, every 12 times you do it, you actually form 2 more strands of DNA. And what I noticed was when I got done doing the first 12 times of doing it, I actually felt better, and I felt like I was vibrating in a higher range of vibration and energy. But when I did the 144 days of doing it, I was in Maryland when I finished and completed it, and I was actually giving the talk that night, and all of a sudden, my diabetic neuropathy disappeared. And I was like, wow, this is cool not having my legs hurt all the time, you know? And the other thing I noticed was personality defects go away. Me and my wife, you know, when I married her, she's like, I need to tell you something, Scott. And I said, what do you need to tell me? I swear. And I said, well, so we'll get along good. But anyway, when I got this 144 times of doing the 24-strand DNA manifestation, I didn't feel any need to curse or swear or do any of that crap, you know. And, you know, I still have the Mormonisms, because you can take the Mormon out of the church, but you can't take the church out of the Mormon. So anyway, so I always, you know, say a few things. But what I noticed, and what my wife noticed, was I was a much kinder human being. And she said to me, she said, Scott, you've changed. And I think it's you doing that 24-strand DNA. And so she decided that she wanted to do it. And it's amazing the changes even Vicky's gone through, my wife. She's different in ways that I just can't even explain, but it's a higher being of light. I'm living with someone who is just, wow, you know, it's like living with Saint Germain, only it's a female. But so anyway, the 24 strands, basically, you know, our two strands have 46 chromosomes. Okay, for you that know your genetics. And luckily, I trained as an OBGYN, and I loved genetics. And that's one of the reasons Saint Germain said he came to me, is because I understand genetics and I understand the science behind it and all this stuff. But anyway, those 2 strands, believe it or not, are getting so broken up by all the chemicals and radiation, Fukushima, Chernobyl, you know, all this stuff. It's breaking our DNA. When I started out as an OBGYN, we were at 5% infertility. Now we're at 35% infertility. When we reach 50% infertility, we start to disappear as a species. Isn't that interesting? So this comes at a very important time on this planet. And I love Saint Germain bringing this information in. The people who I've taught this to, a lot of them were infertile. Well, guess what? they're fertile now. They're fertile. The girl that works for me, it was so interesting. She had married a Mormon, and she came from a family that grows marijuana in California, so she was very different than the Mormons. And she came into me for an intuitive reading, and she said, I feel like I need to get divorced. And it was really interesting, because what I told her was, you have karmic debt with this guy that you married, and you need to stick it out in the marriage, and you both will grow together, and you'll get rid of your karmic stuff. And she looked at me like, you're telling me to stay with this guy? I want to go back to growing marijuana in California. And anyway, she was so high and so moved by what I told her that she decided she wanted to do the 24-strand DNA. Now, they had tried for a year to get pregnant, and she had been told she couldn't get pregnant because of whatever. I just don't want to give too many secrets out about this gal, but very intelligent, and she listened to everything I was telling her, and in fact, she wanted to work for me. She told me for free so she could learn from me because it had impressed her so much. And she started doing the 24-strand DNA thing. And because she believed. And by the time she got done with the 24-strand DNA, guess what happened? She was pregnant. And she did a past life regression with my wife because she was so interested in the past life connection with her and her husband. And my wife blurted out, you've got a fairy growing inside your belly.
Oh.
And I was quite surprised because here, my wife, when I had my experience with fairies, she's like, yeah, right. And, but anyway, she's pregnant. And she was told by doctors she'd never get pregnant. Isn't that amazing? And it was because she did that 24-stranded DNA. And I did some toning on her tubes, which lasered them open, which is interesting. It's just voice sounds, but it sounds like a laser, and it pops out, it just comes out of me. But anyway, when she found out she was pregnant with a fairy, she was so happy. Because fairies love nature, and she loves nature. And the fairies want to come back, believe it or not. And they are incarnating as humans. Isn't that interesting? But they carry that fairy energy. It's fascinating stuff. So anyway, I'm probably, saying some stuff that everybody's going, right. But let me tell you, a lot of our fairy tales are actually real. And so if you see some unicorn that's pooping out rainbows, you go, wow, Scott told me that. Anyway, so what I want to do now is I want to pass out the 24-strand DNA manifestation, if you'll just get that to everybody. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it is. Some of you have already got this and been doing it. I was told to print it with purple because they found our brains will assimilate colors better than reading black and white. And so that's the reason the Saint Germain books are all written in purple, is because Saint Germain came and said they'll understand it better if it's in purple. So anyway, this is the 24 strands of DNA manifestation to be done 12 times 12 times, or 144 times. Each 12 manifestations raises the frequency, and I came to find out it creates, the first 12 times you actually discard your broken up DNA and replace it with 2 perfected strands of DNA, which is way cool. Now, one of the things I learned from Edgar Cayce, who knows who Edgar Cayce is? Oh, geez. We all know who he is. Well, I didn't learn about Edgar Cayce until about 20 years ago. And one of the things he did, when he went in to look at the Akashic records, he would go into the DNA. The DNA has the records of all of humanity and everything that's happened to each and every one of us. And he would go in there and read from the Akashic Records how that person would be healed in the future. Isn't that cool? And then he'd come out of his trance and he'd tell them what to do. And they'd do it and they would heal. Pretty amazing stuff. And the reason I bring that up is the DNA has a record of everything. And it communicates with the other side. In other words, there's things on the end of the DNA called telomeres. You heard of the telomeres? When you get your telomeres all broke off, what happens? You die. You can't create any more cells. Well, guess what happens when you do this 24-strand DNA manifestation? You get more telomeres. Now, whoever named telomeres knew what their purpose was. Telo is like telephone, communication. Mere is other dimensions. So the telomeres are our access to other communication, to other dimensions. You know, we've heard, I heard years ago, we're interdimensional beings. We exist in all dimensions, in all times, in all space. But I didn't really understand that. You know, who understands all this space stuff? All I understood was Star Trek and zooming off at warp speed, you know. But I didn't understand we actually are interdimensional beings through our DNA and our telomeres. Isn't that amazing? And the more DNA, the more telomeres you have, the better able you are to communicate with other dimensions and your other dimensional cells. Isn't that cool? Yeah. I thought that was the most amazing thing. I've learned that since doing this 24-strand DNA. So, what I want to do is it helps raise the frequency of our body, our emotions, our mental and spiritual bodies to a higher vibratory rate. All of us want to evolve. You know, when I take and heal people, sometimes they'll be possessed with other spirits. They'll be in their aura, they'll be in their field, sometimes they're in their body, and I remove them through a higher vibration, asking them if they'd like to evolve. And most spirits, most souls who've been stuck here for quite a while, they're tired. And they hear, oh, we actually can't evolve because they've been lied to by who knows who. And they feel stuck here on the planet. When I tell them they can evolve and it clicks, they go. They go to the next level and they go to the fourth dimension to go through their process of evolution. And, you know, they can come and be reincarnated, work through their karma, and get going. But right now, it's time for the Earth to receive its fifth dimensional glory. Paradisical glory, some people call it. Because the Earth has suffered for a long time because of all of us naughty humans killing each other, causing wars, contentions, and chemicals, and all kinds of stuff. So, let's all read this together. I call upon Mother Earth and Archangel Uriel, the fire of God, the light of God, the Archangel of divine wisdom in the north, the ruler of the elements of earth. I project gratitude, light, and love. I project my being, my energies, my thoughts, deep into the magma and crystalline energy of Mother Earth, yellow, purple, orange in color, asking for the assistance in bringing in the energy of the creative magma up through my feet, up to the root chakra or coccygeal plexus, into the second sexual and sacral chakra, the plexus of creation. I call on divine creative source and the Archangel Jophiel, the beauty of God, the Archangel of creative power and illumination, the guardian of the tree of knowledge with Archangel Uriel. I reach and project gratitude, light, my love, high into the heavens, calling forth the golden white light from source of energy, bringing down the down through the heart chakra, adding love from my heart, and down to the sacral plexus, or creative center just above the pelvic bone. I call for Archangel Zapkiel, keeper of the orange flame of creation, the angel of ecstasy and compassion, to bring the creative energy of the orange flame into my sacral plexus with the intent of creating 24 strands of perfected DNA for the celebration of our existence. I call in the star children, keepers of the perfected 24 strands of perfected human DNA, with the intent to manifest the 24 strands of DNA in my sacral plexus, in the second sexual and creative chakra, and then in every cell in my body. As I place the 24 strands of DNA into every cell in my body, I intend to perfect my body, bones, blood, lymphatic system, nerves, organs, hormones, glands, proteins, telomeres, organelles, carbohydrates, arteries, veins, immune system, adipose tissues, cell membranes, mitochondria, and every other cell in my body at a quantum level, manifesting the perfection of the original humans. I reform the 24 strands into 12 double helix, connecting 2 strands each into a rotated, connected, perfected spiral of double-stranded DNA with perfected telomeres at the ends, acting as little antennae, transmitting perfection from the quantum field and source energy into each and every cell of my body to rejuvenate, revitalize my body to a perfected, eternal state of health and fitness. I break these 12 double helixes into 24 strands of growth DNA in every cell in my body, making me strong, invincible, indestructible, and impenetrable to all the toxins, petrochemicals, nanobots, and radiation. My 12 double helixes connect me at the quantum energies of all other celestial realms. I am now connected and integrated to all my divine interdimensional beings in the multiverse. I am now an enlightened being of light and love. So be it, so it is. Amen. I am. Now, one of the things that Saint Germain has continued to be teaching me is that the multiverse, or omniverse, some of us call it, he actually had me read 2 books that just came out in 2015. I had no idea they had come out, but Saint Germain came and he said, you need to read these books. One of them was called Insider Secrets of Secret Space Programs and Extraterrestrial Alliances. Now that book talks about how the Vril Society in 1934-35 had a lady who was bringing in information from extraterrestrials, and they started building spacecraft. And this was in Germany. And they actually built them prior to World War II. And when World War II broke out, they moved everything down to Chile and Antarctica. Now, whether or not you believe this or not, it can be documented. Now, I was taught in American history that Admiral Byrd went down to explore Antarctica right after World War II. But he was actually sent by General Eisenhower to bring this technology back to the United States. And guess what happened? They beat them with all their technology. So Admiral Byrd came back. He wasn't able to do what he was told to do because the technology with these people was so high that he wasn't able to do it. But all of the scientists that the U.S. captured after World War II, including a lot of the pharmaceutical industry, who went through the war crimes tribunals And then they instead of putting them behind bars, they actually put them in charge of Pfizer, all these companies. But that's another story. But anyway, these books are real cool. So if you want to read them, I'm a Trekkie. I love Star Wars. I love Battlestar Galactica. What's that? Yes, I'll get to that. Anyway, it just proved everything I believed in for years. I mean, I started watching Star Trek when did it come out? 1963. It was black and white. And yet it was so marvelous. But anyway, the other book is called The Omniverse. And it was written by a PhD, and he's got all the references. Actually, the first book has all the references. And what's weird, I have met people who've been there, done that. We've got a base on Mars, and we've been lied to about that. We've got a base on the moon. We've been lied to about that. We've actually been to other planets in other solar systems, other places, and we've been lied to. And humans are quite creative. We can create whatever we set our mind to, whatever we intend to build. We can build cars, we can build buildings, we can build electronics, all kinds of stuff. Why can't we create 24 strands of DNA in our own bodies? We can. I'm here to tell you we can. And so the bottom line is, let's do this together. Let's evolve together. Let's stop the madness. Because let me tell you, I've had people who have been deemed crazy. I've taught them the 24-strand DNA. They've done it. And they're as sane. Well, maybe I'm not the same as I ought to be, but they become good human beings. Basically, we're evolving into Homo luminous instead of Homo sapiens. Okay? Homo luminous means that we're being enlightened beings of light. And that's how we evolve. So thank you for coming tonight. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
How do you suggest that we practice these, what you have taught us when you talk about 12 by 12? Do we do this
once a day? Now, when I was told to go to the TMers, I was told by St. Germain, they go into these deep states, and I learned TM, and I know how deep I go. I went to the void. For the second time I did TM, I went to the void where creation happened. I mean, the void, there's nothing. And when God said, let there be light, there was light. But anyway, so you do it once a day. I've had people do it more than once a day. I had one guy in Maryland who was doing it like 24 times a day. He just kept doing it, and his wife called me up and she says, I don't know what to do with him. He's got so much energy. And he was almost dead when he started doing it.
Oh my. Wow.
And his wife was really going, she called me up to tell me, what do I do with him? He's just doing it too much. And he's just too active now. And I can't keep up with him. And I said, well, maybe you better do it with him. So once a day is what St. Germain said is the safest, because you want to slowly transition in. It takes about 5 months if you do it every day, 144 days. 150 days is 5 months. I used to do protocols for people with herbs, 2-3 years to get their bodies feeling better. I found if they'll do the 24-strand DNA, 5-6 months they're done, and their bodies are feeling really good. Now, I've had people do it, and they haven't felt so good, but it's because I asked them, well, did you say it with emotion and with faith? And a lot of them said, no, Dr. I just did it because you said it would be really good for me. And I said, you gotta use your faith. Faith is a power that we really don't understand until you move into that faith and create things with that faith. Saint Germain, the whole Saint Germain thing in the his books, They create things. It just comes out of nowhere. And is it magic, or is it using the energies of the universe to create it? You know, there are energy devices called free energy devices. I don't know, how many of you have heard of this? St. Germain went into it a lot because he says we need to be using this, because right now we're using up all the oxygen on the earth, burning it in our, burning all the fossil fuels and creating a lot of chaotic weather and stuff. And so we need to move into these higher-minded things.
Right.
And the 24-strand DNA helps us become higher-minded. It's fascinating. Like, when St. Germain talked about the free energy devices, I looked at Tesla stuff and I decided I'm going to make a couple of these, because my power bills are just too dang high. So I hooked one up to my office. My power bill dropped by 50%. I loved it. It was cool, and at first I didn't think, making these coils would actually generate energy from the energy that's all around us. Our five senses only sense 5% of the energy around us. Only 5%. And so when we start getting this DNA in us, we actually start perceiving the other 95%. So it's way cool. But we have to gradually go into it. Literally, this guy in Maryland, he was so hyper and he was almost crazy, is what he said. Because he had all this energy, but he didn't know what to do with all of it. And what we do with it is we give it to each other. We heal each other. We bless each other. We create the society we're supposed to be. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Go ahead.
Well, I could just feel, because I practice our Hatha yoga through Master Chopaksui and pranic healing. So I've developed my chakras, and just what we did, I could feel like a buzz, the energy just wanting to uplift from the lower and the second chakra. So there's definitely something to this.
There is. I'm here to tell you, my body feels so much better, and I am so grateful St. Germain came to me, and I just want to share this with everybody. And St. Germain wants me to share it with everybody too. Go ahead.
I just wanted to share the information. I'm sure many people know it already. But St. Germain has been the guiding force toward leading us back to God throughout the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. He was, as you said, he was Joseph, he was Samuel in the Bible, he was Plato, he was Socrates, he was Roger Bacon, who wrote about the Opus Majus. In his next life, Christopher Columbus, he discovered the United States of America, he discovered America and the Western world. He was Merlin, he was Francis Bacon, who was William Shakespeare, and also responsible for writing for the final cuts in the Bible. And he was the anonymous Rosicrucian who spoke to our forefathers at the Independence Hall for the founding of our country. And he's really the father of our country, because he said, he goes, sign it. It was after the speech that John Hancock grabbed the pen and wrote John Hancock across the bottom of the Declaration of Independence so that the king wouldn't have to put his glasses on to read his name. So, he said, sign, even if they put a noose around your neck, sign for every worker, for every slave, for everybody that ever been mistreated. Sign with your last breath.
Yes.
So he's leading us and he's guiding us, and he's here now.
And when you've got it for yourselves, guess who I'm trying to manifest to have 24 strands of DNA? Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Because if we can lift them up, they can lift the whole country. So thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, years ago I read a series of books called The Masters, and I can't remember the rest of the name of it, but both the lady who introduced you and yourself used that as a title kind of thing, other than saying, and I'm just wondering, this was about people.
Masters of the Far East.
Yes.
Teachings.
Yes.
Masters of teaching of the
Yes.
Far East. Yes.
Is that connected?
It is very connected. All of the higher masters work together for our benefit.
Okay, Lois just had a great idea. And some of us know each other from Elsie's Monday Night Group. What if we got together like I mean, we do it on a daily basis, but once a week to do it together.
It's, you know, when two or more of you
Yeah,
are
Yes.
gathered in my name,
I
there is
am,
power.
I am consciousness.
Yes.
One thing, I ordered your book, and I have it in my house, the book. But I wanted to read you first, in order to see what was all of this about, you know? But start to read the book.
Yes. Now, you want to hear something weird? After I got the book done,
Uh-huh.
Saint Germain said, "You're going to Colombia." And I'm like, really? Anyway, I ended up going last June to Colombia, and I'm writing a book about Father Gabriel Mejia, and the stuff he has done is so amazing. He has a 98% success rate of bringing children and adults off the street, drugged up, prostitutes, and helping them to evolve. And I gave Father Mejia my book, and he read it, and he goes, "Scott, I think this is a good book." And he says, "I hope the book you write about me will be just as good." And so I've been working really hard on it. But isn't it interesting how things happen?
Very interesting.
Yeah, Colombia is a wonderful country, and our CIA screwed it up something awful.
You need to tell everybody you have the books here. If they want to
Yes, I've got the books here. We can't sell them here in this room. We've got about the trunks of our cars. Give you goodies.
Do you have a website where we can buy them from there? Or?
I do have a website. I've had Saint Germain actually made me get rid of my Facebook, and he wanted me to just subdue my website so the feds don't come after me. Because they want to keep things as they are. The cabal wants to keep things as they are.
Yeah.
And they want to control us, and they want to enslave us, and they're enslaving us. But if we manifest these 24 strands of DNA, there will be nothing able to enslave us again. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Yes.
Would it be too much to request that you would come for us one more time?
Sure. Which one do you want me to do?
What you did in the beginning?
All of them? Okay. Because they're very, very powerful to open up every chakra. Each one, I start with the heart chakra, and then I go down. As you can hear, I go down in tones.
Right.
And each chakra, the Tibetan monks, it was really weird. When Jonathan Goldman started doing toning, I was amazed by him. And then when I got this blessing and I started doing the same type of stuff, it was very cool, and I was very grateful, although he's very cool. So let's do this, and then anybody who wants to join in can join. What I do is I set my intent to heal everyone here and anyone who feels the vibration. So. And I have a little infinity. And then for the throat chakra, a lot of us don't speak our truth because of fear and lack of faith. And this, it's the me chakra. It affects a lot of us humans are losing our hearing. You know, guys my age, I went to my class reunion, half of them were wearing hearing aids. And I was like, what? Heck, you know, they're young, at least I feel like. Okay. So this is the me chakra, that's why I use the me. Then use the alpha and omega. And then the higher ones are just the upper We actually have connections clear from our 7th cervical vertebrae that goes down into our heart and through the triple warmer, and it brings all of these energies up. So this actually is very helpful for the heart too. So you'll all have very nice dreams. Thank you for coming. Just know this is real stuff. Just have faith. Faith is a belief in things you don't really know, but let me tell you, they do come true, and it will change your life. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.